So Sheila, to get us started, like, why is it so important to be communicating about our role with the person we're caring for?
Yeah, well, I think some things that we don't think about that seem obvious when you go into it is, caregiving is changing two lives. It's changing theirs and yours. And so when there are things left unspoken about this role that you've taken on, that this new role that both of you seem to be in, like can lead to all kinds of things. Guilt, resentment, misunderstandings, not something you want to do with the one you're caring for. Regular conversations help preserve trust and dignity and build independence. It's just so valuable to be able to talk about things that matter in this new situation that you're going through.
I love that you mentioned trust and dignity there because, and I have the benefit of hindsight, my caregiving is over, but when I was caring for my mom, I didn't get that part, right? And I didn't see more, I guess more to the point of today's discussion is I didn't see how having an open dialogue with my mom in my case about what I was doing, about my role in supporting her, I didn't see how that would help preserve, or help build trust in this new context for us. And I think even more importantly to me, as I look back now, help mom preserve some of her dignity. Because in my head, again, looking back, and I was doing the best I can, but like the conversation was a one-way street. Like I knew what was happening. I knew what mom was facing. I knew what she needed to do,
Right.
or what we needed to do for her. So I was sort of mandating, like I was just like broadcasting. I wasn't actually conversing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's so common that I mean, you have to give yourself a break because you're trying to help, and
Yeah.
it may have come off one way or want something that you're regretting now, but gosh, we just do the best we can.
Yeah. 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 And we'll get into a little bit more about sort of my words, not yours, Sheila, but how sort of communicating it's like the oil that makes the rest of the caregiving engine run, the way
Ah,
I see it now.
yes,
Um,
I love that.
So we'll get more into that. But another question as we're getting started, like, why is it so hard? I found
Oh,
it so difficult to
yeah.
have these conversations with my mom. Why? Why is it? And I
Oh,
don't think I'm alone in that. Why?
no.
This is my question to you.
Well, you mentioned it, I think, a little bit when we first started, is that it sneaks up on us. Caregiving doesn't it all of a sudden sneaks up. You wake up one day and you're like, "I'm a caregiver." And after years of practicing one way to relate to someone, you're thrust into being forced to relate in a different way. It's unsettling. And no one has taught us to have this conversation about a shift in our roles because we never expect the shift to happen. And we're forced to learn as we go. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, because every situation's different and there could be an accident or a sudden health issue that makes
Yeah.
us a caregiver. And that can happen instantly. And, to your point, we wake up and all of a sudden we have this new role, really critical to us, to the person we're caring for, like just this all consuming new role. And then in a case like mine, where it happened over time, like my mom was living with Alzheimer's disease, and that was a slow progression, and it picked
Mhm.
up speed at different points. But I still, even though I was becoming a caregiver gradually, I still had that moment where I'm like, I woke up one day, I'm like, man, this is it. This is really happening. I am mom's person for everything, right? And by that time in my situation, I had already begun communicating the way that I had already like built these habits had already set in, and habits in terms of how I would say, like, mom, we need to go to the doctor, let's go. Or mom, I'm coming down on, next Tuesday, we're going to this appointment. And I was mandated, like, and that happened early before I knew to take a step back and like think about this. Does that any of that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I think you have to go back to your intentions. You were trying to get things done in the most effective way. You were running your own family. You had a job. You're just trying to do things and get things done efficiently. So once again, you cannot like say it was the wrong thing to do or I should have done it
Absolutely.
differently. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm not being hard on myself here.
Okay. I hope not.
It's just interesting to sort of try and dissect,
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so it's really important for us to have these conversations. If you're like me out there and find them difficult, you're not alone. How do we do it? Let's think about like actually how we have the conversations. And, as we talk about in these sessions a lot, when we're in the middle of caregiving, regardless of stage, regardless of situation, like it can be hard to think clearly, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because people, this is not the only role we have. It might be the most important at certain points of time, of course, but it's not the only thing we have going on in our life. We have families, we have jobs, we have all this other stuff. And then we have the intensity of actually caring for the person that we're caring for. It can be really, really difficult to like see things clearly, think clearly, um, in the ways that we normally would if we didn't have this added stress of the caregiving situation. The first thing I was thinking about, if I could go back and do it again, I'd sort of try and step back and have a little bit of a plan for this conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And the first part of that plan would be like being thoughtful about the time and place, like when to have it. So what are your thoughts on like setting this up, like
Yeah.
time, place? What should be part of our plan to have this hard discussion?
Well, I think that you have to have an intention. I would say you want a calm, private place. You want not to be rushed. You don't want to try to fit it in or squeeze it in before you're doing something else. Do it. Make sure you're not hungry or tired or stressed out. That's not a good time to have any conversation. And then try to find a neutral location. Do you typically sit down at the kitchen table over a cup of coffee? What place is neutral and comfortable? Sometimes I'll tell you, sometimes the best conversations are on a walk, if that's something that your loved one can do at this point, because it sort of takes the pressure off of like sitting face to face with someone. If you're really awkward about that, make it a little more casual. On a walk, you can bring up this conversation. So that's where I'm thinking, I don't know what times and places worked best for you.
Yeah, so I didn't do it on a walk, but I love that idea. And I did none of this as we're describing, right? I
That's
took
okay. That's okay.
a
Where would
different,
you
this is coming from a place of, hey, this is what I've learned. And if I could go back and do it again, I would approach, I love the walk idea because you're right. Even if you've set a time that you're not going to be rushed and you're in a place that's calm and sort of quiet without distraction, it can be there's still like a feeling, right? Like it
Yeah,
can be like it can feel real formal and big and heavier than maybe
exactly.
it needs to be. So for that reason, I love the walk idea. And there
Mhm.
could be alternatives, if the person you're caring for likes to be outside and sit on the front porch, or they like to garden, or
Right.
whatever it is, while something familiar and comfortable is happening, like
Mhm.
that could be a good time, right? To break the ice.
Absolutely.
Another, though, key part about this, which is really I personally really struggled with, I have a tonality problem sometimes, right? So, like, thinking about
Yeah.
my body language and the tone of what I'm saying, the tone of my voice, that has almost as much importance as, like, what we're actually saying,
Right.
the words we're speaking, right? So that's
Mhm.
another really important part, is trying to be intentional, or in our understanding that that really matters. Like, our like the vibe we're giving off with tone,
Right.
body language, all of it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. And so the goal is to communicate safety, not pressure. You wanna be curious. You're like, "I have this thing I wanna talk about, and I'm curious to know how you feel about it." And
Mm,
you'll have to sort of give off the impression of being open and available to hear their suggestions, their advice. Some of the other things that I think are really important, depending on the level of progression of a disease or whatever, you want to be at eye level. You don't ever want to stand over someone. That really gives the impression of being in control and pressuring. You want to steady your voice. You want to slow the pace of your conversation. You want to pay attention to their body language. Are they crossing their arms? Are they looking away? And if they do, pause. And you could say, I want to make this work for both of us. I'm still trying to figure this out. So it's not, you're sort of reducing the idea that they're going to feel like you're taking control. It's like, geez, like, help me out here.
mm, mhm. I love those all make sense to me, and, I think they can all be boiled down to sort of teamwork, for lack of a better way to put it,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to making, or maybe a different analogy is like making sure that the person that we're talking with knows it's a two-way street, and that,
Mhm.
like, making your intention clear for it to be that way, not you mandating
Absolutely.
something, right?
Mhm.
And all of these subtle little things, whether it be how we're positioned, standing over someone or not, like all of these things sort of play into that, like just the vibe of the whole interaction. So I think those are like trying to be thoughtful and intentional, and no one is perfect. No one is like, these are hard discussions, and it's not going to go exactly like you drew it up in your plan. I'd be willing but it's still, that doesn't mean it's not important to sort of try and do your best to have a plan going in. And
Yep.
these are things that would be in there, in that part of that plan, right? And a
Right.
couple of other things I think that are really important. And I know you and I have talked about this a lot in the past, but another part of the plan is your expectation, internal, and maybe it's not even spoken, but like this probably isn't a one-time conversation, or shouldn't be, right? It should
No.
be a ongoing dialogue. Like that's the goal here, is to either open this channel of communication. If it's not open at the moment, open it, but also keep it open, right? Like, so
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be this big, definitive, declarative conversation and then you never talk about it again. It's a hopefully a one-time thing, or like the first of a many time thing.
Yeah,
What I
and the
think of.
first and chip away at it. This could be really small, and as soon as you do the first one, the second one's gonna be easier. So keep that in mind. This is not something you have to lay out and figure out in one conversation. It's little tiny things that are gonna build that trust and respect over time.
I love it. And then, but a couple of one other thing we didn't mention in the plan is sort of point in time.
Mhm.
We, our respective caregiving experiences aren't static, right? Like you're a caregiver now and you're doing certain things because your loved one has certain needs, and but those are going to change over time, and
Yeah.
therefore uh, your responsibilities, frankly, as a caregiver, are going to change
Yeah.
as your loved one's needs do. So trying to, as part of these conversations, have an eye towards that future,
Yeah.
I think, is also really beneficial,
Yeah, this is
if we can.
evolving. Yeah, it's gonna keep changing and shifting, and the time that you do it or how you do it might shift as well. But once you start it, it'll become a routine, and that'll be easier to adapt.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So let let's start like thinking about, like, how do we actually start the conversation? Like what are some ideas? Because I know I stumbled on this. Like what do I say first? Because it's all a little bit awkward, right?
Yeah.
At the start. But like, do you have some ideas on like how to actually break that ice?
Yeah, I think you move slowly. You find that time that you think is gonna be appropriate, and you could say something like, "There's something I wanna talk about, if it's okay. It's really important to me, and I wanna get your ideas on how you've been feeling about how I'm helping," and just kind of lay it out like, "To be honest, this is new for me, and I'm sure I'm making mistakes, and I wanna learn. Is there something I could be doing different or better? How's it working for you?"
So you're making that. I noticed a few I statements, right?
Mhm.
We talk a lot about I statements as like a technique, a communication technique in
Yeah.
these sessions. But can you break down what you're doing there? Like, how does that disarm? Maybe disarm. It's too strong a word, but you know what I mean. How does that
Yeah.
disarm the person we're talking with?
Well, I think that when you're talking about, instead of saying you're doing this or you're saying this, it really does open it up to say, I'm feeling, this is how I'm feeling, and this is, I'm trying my best, and I might be making mistakes, and I really want to learn. This is all helping to build that collaboration you were talking about, that teamwork. And I also think it's important to don't interrupt or correct if they answered. Resist the temptation to try to defend how you're doing things. It's like sitting back and listening patiently, reflecting. Sounds like you're frustrated when I step in too quickly about this thing. Tell me more about that, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to overstep my bounds. I want to help, but I also want to let you keep as much independence. So help me learn.
I love help me learn. I love that. Like, help me learn how best to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really, I like that. So you're like, what I'm hearing from you, Sheila, just to sort of play it back, is like a good effective icebreaker could be like making it about us initially,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And not in a selfish way, in a way that hopefully delivers the message that we're doing our best and we want to do better.
Yeah, and you need their help.
Yeah, and we need
Help you
right.
do that.
And then, like, I know we were trading notes on ahead of the conversation, but like some like prompts that we could use or questions if we're feeling stuck. But things like, how have you been feeling about how I'm helping? Right?
Mhm.
Like open-ended questions. Is there anything you'd like done differently, or what can I do differently for you, or better for you? Right? Like,
Right.
so like trying to keep them open-ended, getting them talking, so that we can be in a position to be hearing from them and actually just be focused on listening and hearing what's being said, right?
Yeah. Yeah, those are all great. And I also think always getting back to how they feel about something. How are you feeling about how I'm doing things? Or what things are tough for you these days? I mean, that kind of drills down to their emotions of how sad it could be to be losing their independence or whatever, and kind of building that up more of a bond.
Mhm.
I think you could also start talking a little bit about the future in a way that, if things get harder, how would you feel about having other people come in to help me?
Yeah. So that I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is, as we know, can be a loaded topic. And so you just said, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I got it right, but how would you feel if things get harder? How would you feel about bringing people in from the outside to help me? So a few things there, but you're asking how they feel, like you're giving them agency, you're enrolling them in the process, right? You're not mandating, is sort of how I perceive that, just hearing what you said. But then also you're coming back around and making it about you, because you're bringing people in from the outside to help me,
Mhm.
not necessarily to help you. You know what I'm saying? It's a subtle difference there
Yeah.
between how would you feel about me bringing people in from the outside to help you, right?
Yeah.
Like there's like subliminal messaging there that could be construed as like, whoa, you just want to pass off, helping me to someone else. Well, no, no, no. If we're phrasing it like, how would you feel about me bringing someone from the outside to help me, or to help me? It's about me again. We're removing them from the situation where, like, to me, those words sort of kind of go a few steps further and like really making this about a team effort between the two people.
Yeah, and you can
Right.
ease into that even more, Matt. I feel like you could say, "How would you feel about someone else helping out?" And so the next step would be, "How would you feel about having, a family member?" So they'd say, "Well, what does that mean? What do you mean someone else?" "I don't know." "Well, let's talk about that. Who do we have available?" So you're easing into that conversation rather than them jumping to the conclusion of you're gonna hire somebody that they don't know to come in.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. I love it. And again, it's worth reiterating that what was like do you remember the old Mike Tyson quote, the boxer? Hopefully everybody knows Mike Tyson, but he had this quote way back in the 80s, like, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth or something like that, right? It's the
Right.
same type of thing here.
Yeah,
Like, these
yeah.
conversations can be really difficult. They're not black and white. They're nuanced and sort of, dressed with all sorts of emotion oftentimes. So, but like having this, some semblance of a plan, and, an idea of what you're trying to accomplish, but also like how you're going to try and accomplish that, can really help us sort of navigate the muddiness of these conversations and the
Mhm.
heaviness of these conversations
Mhm.
sometimes.
They will become easier. They really will. It's like I said, that first step, you just keep thinking this is gonna be a terrible thing and, one step at a time.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to drop a little resource, a gifted resource from Carallel into the chat. It's an article that touches on a lot of what we've been talking about. It's a pretty brief three minute read, but could be good for future reference. And Sheila, I mean, time flies when we're having fun. We have 3 minutes to the bottom of the hour. Is there anything else that you would add for the group about just this concept of having this open line of communication?
I think really just when it comes down to it, I want to reiterate your opinion that this is an ongoing conversation, that try not to look at this as the one thing that you have to do and and because that's going to make it harder for you to step in and do it, first of all. Like it's going to make it really hard. It's going to set up a barrier like, oh my gosh, I have to sit down and have this conversation. It's not that. It's just a sentence or two to get things going, to break the ice. Maybe that's all you say. And then the next time there's another sentence added on to that. Just in general, I think, I mean, to kind of in my summary, I would say You're gonna do things wrong sometimes. You're gonna say things wrong sometimes, and you're allowed to say, "You know what? That came out wrong. Can I try again?" Just like it's okay. And I also feel like we don't always have to solve a problem. You know,
Mm.
if they say, "Well, you're doing this wrong," or "This is happening, and I wish this," feeling heard and respected matters more than solving a problem in the moment. Getting connected on that personal level, if you just have a quiet moment and you connect, but you don't solve any problem, that's still great. That's still great.
Yeah. Absolutely on the connection. Because again, um, that's really what it's like. There are a few linchpins to any caregiving experience, and connection is one of them, and maybe the biggest, honestly, because
Yeah.
at the end or after caregiving is over, like like, for example, that's what I remember most about my caregiving experience right now, 2+ years removed from it. Like, I remember the connection. And yes, we want to keep our loved ones safe and we want to keep them engaged with the world around them. And we want them to feel like they haven't lost their dignity and or their agency or things like that. That's all absolutely true, and we do our absolute best to make that happen. But when it's done, what we have left is the memory of the connection, right? And so, anyway, I didn't feel that way when I was caregiving. I didn't have the perspective to, but I'm here to say now I firmly believe that that is what's most important, and it's not to your point, we're gonna make mistakes, lots of them, and
Yep.
and
Prepare
have
that.
arguments and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
Do we stay connected through them all, or
Yeah.
don't we? That's really, I guess, what we're getting at. Hopefully, people found this helpful. Hope everyone finds at least a little slice of peace and joy throughout the holiday season, and we'll see you in 2026.
Take good care.
Take good care. Thanks.